When Shannon was in college, it was coming to her senior banquet. She asked me to go with her. And so I was more than happy to. So I drove down there on a Friday down to Lakeland, had my tux all ready. And so while I was down there on that Saturday, she was driving me around, showing me around Lakeland. And she said she wanted to show me this one particular lake. And so we drove around a little bit. We come to this lake, and she pulls up, and some people were honking, and I didn't know who it was. I didn't see anybody, and honestly, I thought somebody was trying to start something. I was starting to get blowed up, trying to impress my girlfriend, right? So we get to this lake, and we start walking down towards the lake shore, and I see somebody has this nice picnic laid out. I mean, candlelight, food, the whole nine. And I was like, oh, wow, man, somebody's working. And she turns and looks at me, and then it dawns on me, this picnic is for me. And so I looked at her, I was like, oh, look at you. And what really made this picnic so special was this was the first time that she ever told me she loved me. And so it was a big weekend for us. We went to her senior banquet that night, had a great time with her and her friends, and just really a really great weekend. So Sunday rolls around, and it's time for me to go back home to Niceville. And so we say goodbye. We say we love each other, which was really special. And I'm on cloud nine. I'm just and I leave the school and I go to driving. And I'm just thinking about the weekend, just replaying that over and over in my mind. Shannon telling me that she loved me, and it was such a incredible experience. And so I've been driving for about, I don't know, hour and a half probably, and really I honestly kind of lost track of time. And I keep noticing these signs for Miami, and I noticed that the number to Miami keeps getting smaller and smaller. But it's still not really dawning on me because, again, I'm just thinking about how much in love we are and how it's amazing. We're in love. And I come to this toll booth, and I finally kind of snap out of it. And I asked the toll booth attendant, I said, hey, am I heading to Miami? And he just laughed and said, yeah. Are you not supposed to? And I went, no. I drove almost 2 hours in the wrong direction. I was heading to Miami. Not supposed to be heading to Miami. And this was the days before GPS, before I had anybody, telling me to turn left, turn right, recalculating, turn around. It reminded me of an article I read a couple years ago about these scientists that were studying the effects of GPS usage on our brains. And so, however long that they had done the study, what they found was that people who used their GPS regularly for just day-to-day driving, they found a part of their brain called the hippocampus, which is responsible for telling us and letting us know and keeping us aware of where we are in space and cognitive maps. That part of the brain had atrophied in those that use GPS regularly. And I thought that was so fascinating that something that we depend on to get us where we need to go, to lead us to places, was actually causing a part of our brain to slowly degrade and decay and die. And it got me thinking, how many other things in our lives, how many other areas of our lives have we become so dependent on other things to lead us where we need to go, to tell us what to do, to make decisions? I mean, how many decisions do you think we make in a single day? How many big decisions? How many little decisions? What goes into our day-to-day decisions? What are our major influences on our decision making? Where do we come up with the things that we choose? What makes us choose things the way we do? What are our major sources of influence that lead us and guide us in our day-to-day lives? When Jesus arrives on the scene, one of the first things that he does he is baptized by John the Baptist. And Matthew says that immediately after Jesus was baptized, the heavens opened up and the Spirit of God descends on Jesus. And the next chapter, the next thing that Matthew says, it's Matthew chapter 4, verse 1, says that then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to there be tempted by the devil. Now that phrase there, to be that he was led by the Spirit, that phrase would describe Jesus' entire life and ministry. That everything he did, his everyday life, was led by the Spirit. He would tell his disciples about the Spirit in John chapter 14. He tells his disciples, he says that soon he's going to send the Holy Spirit who will lead them into all truth. He says, but the world won't recognize the Holy Spirit because the world's not looking for him. But then he says this in verse 17, he says, but you know him because he lives with you and soon will live in you. He lives with you now. They were seeing the physical example of the Holy Spirit. They were witnessing every day a life being led by the Holy Spirit. Jesus is our greatest example of what it means to be led by the Holy Spirit. One of his disciples, John, wrote in 1 John chapter 2, verse 7 and 8, he says, dear friends, I am not writing a new commandment for you. Rather, it is an old one that you have heard from the very beginning. He says, this old commandment, to love one another, is the same message that you have heard before. He said, yet it is also new. Jesus lived the truth of this commandment. Jesus lived the truth of this commandment. His everyday life lived out this commandment. His everyday life, he lived being led by the Holy Spirit. If you want to know what it really looks like to live a life led by the Holy Spirit, you've got to study his life, his everyday life. He is our greatest example of a Spirit-led life. So what do you think when you hear the term led by the Spirit? Like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it a church service or a camp meeting or a tent revival? Maybe it's hearing someone prophesy or speak in tongues or some other gift of the Spirit. I know for a lot of us, particularly those of us who come from maybe a Pentecostal church background, we tend to think of led by the Spirit in the context of church. A lot of times I think that's what we will associate with being led by the Spirit. But is that really what that meant? I mean, when you look at Jesus' life, when you see his life being led by the Spirit, it wasn't just in the context of the temple. It wasn't just in the context of the church services. That when Jesus was being led by the Spirit, it was an everyday experience. It was an everyday occurrence. Galatians chapter 5, verse 16 says, so I say, let the Holy Spirit guide your lives. Then you won't be doing what your sinful nature craves. Paul would go on to say, since we are living by the Spirit, let us follow the Spirit's leading in every part of our lives. And you see, he would write in that chapter of Galatians in chapter 5, Paul would write to us about what that looks like and how we kind of know. Because I know for a long time it was difficult for me to even comprehend, what does that look like? Because some of the people that I would look to, some of the people that I would associate with being Spirit-led, I mean, to be quite honest, were a little strange to me. Because that's how I always associated it, was with the church. But Paul writes about what a spirit-led lifestyle looks like. And it's in Galatians chapter 5, verse 22. He says, the fruits of the Spirit, what the Spirit produces in our lives when we are Spirit-led. Listen to this. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Now, I want you to notice that these aren't just emotions, that this isn't just about how we feel, that these fruits that the Holy Spirit produces in our lives have so much more to do with how we connect with other people. It has so much more to do with our connectivity to other people in the world. That the fruit that the Holy Spirit produces in us is not just about making our lives better. And you see, when you see Jesus' life, you see that. You see how his life was marked by love. He lived a life led by the Holy Spirit, marked by love. Look at the way that he treats other people. Look at the way that he treats people that the rest of the world wanted nothing to do with. You see how he treats these people with patience and kindness. The religious people wanted nothing to do with him. And it's so fascinating to me how people who most churches would want nothing to do with today, they wanted to be around Jesus. They were drawn to him. And really, they should be drawn to us. If we are being led by the Spirit, that will draw people in. His life led by the Spirit pulled those people in, because it wasn't just about how he felt. It wasn't just about being seen as somebody spiritual or righteous or holy, but his lifestyle led by the Spirit put him in a position to interact and connect with people that were really nothing like him. So do you see Jesus in your life? Your everyday life? Not just your time with the church or with other Christians, but in every area of your life. Are you seeing the fruit of the Holy Spirit? Are you seeing the fruit of a life that's led by the Holy Spirit? Do you see enough fruit? Or are there some areas of your life that you want to see more? That you want to see more of the Holy Spirit in your life? Maybe it's in your relationships. Maybe it's with your spouse or with your family, with your children or your parents. Well, what could you do to see more of the Holy Spirit in those areas of your life? What scriptures could you study to begin to impact your heart and your mind? What seeds could you plant every day to see that fruit grow? Remember that what you plant is what you will eventually harvest. So if every day you're planting these seeds to be led by the Holy Spirit, you're planting seeds, seeking God out, seeking to be led by his Spirit every day. Maybe pick one area of your life and begin to seek surrender. And the reason I say surrender is because the Holy Spirit is not going to just kick in the door. He has to be invited, and you have to surrender those areas of your lives. Are you willing to live God's way all the way in that area of your life? Because until we do, we won't really begin to see the fruit of the Holy Spirit, because we're still worried about living our way. But to be led by the Spirit in everyday life, in every aspect of your life, it does take time. See, I love that example of the tree and the fruit, because that should give us the mindset that this isn't an overnight occurrence. This isn't a one-time event where I maybe go to an altar or I pray a prayer and then I just suddenly start producing fruit. You see, those seeds need to be planted, and then they need to be watered every day. They need to be nurtured and cared for every day. And then eventually we begin to see more of that fruit grow in our lives, to where maybe you are more loving to other people in your life. Maybe you're just more loving to your spouse or to your children or your parents. Maybe you just are kinder to your coworkers. But you see, it takes that everyday surrendering to the leading of the Holy Spirit. It's not weird. I would challenge you, if you think it is, read and study Jesus' life. Tell me what you find in there that's so weird. You don't. You see a life that's marked by love and selflessness and self-sacrifice. And that's what we are called to as believers. But to do that, we have to be led by the Spirit in our everyday life, not just our church life. Jesus lived his life led by the Holy Spirit. And it was a life that was marked by love. Selfless, self-sacrificing love. And what's wonderful is that he said we could do the same. We could all live that kind of life. You and I have the opportunity to live a life every day led by the Holy Spirit. And so I pray that we will strive every day to surrender every part of our life to the leading of the Holy Spirit. That we focus our minds, that we focus our hearts and our attention to being led by the Holy Spirit. Because I believe then we'll live the kind of lives that impact our world, our community, our family and friends for the kingdom. That will make the kind of difference that Jesus was able to make. That we too can change others' lives when we live lives led by the Holy Spirit. So I pray for you, I pray for your family, that you'll strive every day to live surrendered to the Holy Spirit, and that you will begin to see more and more fruit as you do that, that you will begin to see more love and joy and peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, and we'll see you soon.